Welcome to Nuuness TV, a web series where leading ladies in athletic performance discuss the truths, challenges, and opportunities in being an active female participant in sport. I'm Emma Coburn, Olympic steeplechase medalist and your host for Nuuness TV.
Meet Alysia Montaño. Alysia is an Olympic track and field athlete and 7-time U.S. champion. Known as the Olympian with the flower in her hair, Alysia has sat at the forefront of bold and courageous conversations concerning equal pay, maternity rights, and anti-doping as they pertain to her pursuit of being an athlete, a mother, and a strong female role model. Alysia, thank you so much for being with us at Nuuness TV. Tell us a little bit, before we dive in, about your background in track and field and a little bit about your story.
Oh my goodness. My background in track and field was not my first event, my first sport. I grew up playing sports across the board. I'm very similar to your story, where my parents had us in sports year round. And it was really great for us. I just enjoyed playing, and then ultimately ended up being the fastest one in most all of my sports. And we had a really awesome youth track and field program that would have us involved in track from like the age of 5, but it was just really, to me, it was a filler sport. But ultimately ended up having my uncle as one of the youth coaches that was there that kind of kept his eye on like what was going on. Then they asked me to do the 800 in like 7th grade. I was like, sure, I have to run another lap. Ended up doing it, did a pretty good job. And then it still wasn't my event. The 800 wasn't my event till, in my mind, until my senior year of high school. And that's what I got a scholarship for. And I was like, oh, so I'm really like gonna be an 800 meter runner. So that's a quick gist version of my background in sport and how I became a track and field athlete.
And what are some of the big highlights and moments from your career as a collegiate pro?
Yeah. Well, from a performance standpoint, I've won 7 U.S. national titles, 6 outdoor, 1 indoor. I've won 1 indoor bronze medal, and now have 2 retroactive outdoor bronze medals. And I have become an Olympian, which is an incredible feat for me. It was obviously a lifelong goal. And I feel...
And she has the coolest ring.
Well, stop it.
It's
gotta talk
Olympic gemstones,
Yeah.
and it's very cool.
Yep, talk to Lou.
Yeah.
He's the designer. And so from that, I think we talk about accomplishments. I think from a performance standpoint, that has been really incredible for me, but I've also loved to be able to share my love for sport and for running and to like larger communities. Now I'm a part of the mom community, and I know a lot of us enjoy being full humans. And sport wasn't necessarily a space where we were allowed to be full people. And I really consider it an accomplishment to be able to run with my son and my daughter at a national championship because I had a bid to race there, and was able to have a larger conversation on a topic that I care about.
And can you talk a little bit about your Olympic experiences? Like what were those like for you?
Okay, so
the good, the bad, the ugly. Give us all of it. I already know it, but other people don't.
Yeah, okay. So I went for my first Olympic team in 2008. I remember actually, let's talk about 2004. Was my first Olympic experience, I would say. And I remember my just won our high school state meet, California state meet in the 800. I was recruited to Cal. I was gonna go see the campus again. I was already going. I was gonna, meet with the Cal coach at the Olympic trials. I was in Sacramento that year. And my dad, got in his car, drove with he and his friends, and it was just a very funny experience because we like slept in my dad's car and everything like that. He has like this, it was fine.
It's more like camping.
It was like a camper, like van car. Did that whole thing, and because my dad's like, oh, she wants to go to the Olympics, like let me show her Olympics. It's like one of those things where you're saying you want to do it as a kid, and I'm like, oh, I actually never really even watched an Olympics on TV, I'm to be completely honest. Besides, I watched gymnastics, I watched Carrie the Carrie Strug moment, but like besides, I was a kid. My attention span's like this big. I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to watch the whole thing. But yeah, so I went there and I was super fascinated with the process, to be completely honest. And I remember when I was going to be coming in, our 800-meter star, Chloe Jarvis, was at the trials, and I thought it was really cool that she participated. And that was the extent of that. But it was also like, okay, so she was a college athlete. Kind of just had that spark of it being something that you can potentially do while you were in college, instead of it seeing like the stepping stone outside of college. So yeah, that was great for me. She was a 2:13 runner, ended up being a 2:03 runner. And I was like, and she did that in a year. And I was like, okay, like this is amazing. This could be me. Yeah. So it allowed for me to know 2008 for my entry to my end point is where I want to set my goals of making the next team. I didn't feel like it was so far away. So I ended up running the fastest, winning in 2007, my junior year in college, USA Nationals, and it made it like that much closer of being like, oh, like you can definitely make the Olympic team your senior year in college. And I went in as the favorite in 2008, ended up having a foot fracture, which is not that easy to run with one foot. But again, my moment from the Olympics in 2004, before 2004, that I'd seen on TV before was the Carrie Strug moment where she like stuck it with one leg. And I was like, I'm gonna stick it with one leg.
And also, for those that don't know, there's rounds.
Yeah, and there's rounds.
Not just doing one
round.
One 2-lap race, and if you get top 3, you make the team. You have to go through days of rounds.
Right.
So
there's that.
No way.
So there's no way. So the first round I was out. I didn't get my Carrie Strug moment on one leg. And it was devastating, but at the same time, I think I had the benefit of youth on my side, so I was able to kind of think about what I wanted to do next. I did have that very hard, rough period where I was able to share with athletes after me, about like the transition periods, the what not to do sort of things, which is great because I had, I think that's kind of what life is, kind of share, hopefully, to help other people. But it's good because I knew, all right, that 4-year space of time was something, I had so much change that happened in that I'm going to be able to do that going into the 2012 season. So my eyes were set on that. I was able to do things like set really amazing boundaries that were a lot of no's, because I just knew like this was such a precious time and I will always have youth on my side to make these sort of things happen. And so, I went to the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista for a year to rehab, came back to my coach, and we kind of just, after that year, it was just, I ended up running the fastest time of the year, the world the next year.
And wait, let's pause. The way Alysia races is
person.
Not crazy person. She's brave, she has some gumption, and she leads races from the gun, going out, like it looks like she miscounted laps and thinks she's running a 400, and then keeps going. So to not only, fight back through this injury, but then to come back and win U.S. titles and be so dominant in races and be so fearless in leading races is so special. How did you get your mind? Did you have to be intentional, or is it something that comes natural from you?
Well, I think the fierceness is a little bit of natural from me, but in terms of racing, I think it's something that I had to be intentional about, because of like the progression, the progress that it took to get to even running 159 in college. Was my cousin, actually. My junior year, my sophomore year, I finished third. I ran 2:03 or 2:01 or something like that. And I was like, oh, I had so much left at the end. And he's like, why would you finish a race and have so much left at the end? And I was really offended. I was like, you're not out there.
You don't understand.
Yeah.
But then actually you're right.
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, like I gotta run it. Like I'm running it in a model that fits other people. Everyone's like gonna do like whatever negative splits. And I'm like, I'm okay with being a different beast. In practice, I've been doing things that have been completely different, but somehow in a race, I feel like I have to run it the way everybody else is running it. And so I kind of started testing it out in college that junior year, and it just ended up being a perfect season where I'm like, oh, this really works for me. I'm able to, I have a larger speed endurance capacity than other people, and I think that's the special thing about athletes, about people, is we all have different things and it doesn't have to be the same formula. So I ended up figuring that out because I was offended.
But you were able to grow from that,
and also take a step back and think, okay, you're just being defensive instead of being able to like maybe look, there's something for you to look at. So yes, so there was that. And then also I think the injuries also gave me that understanding of time isn't promised to me. So like, I don't have the luxury to base my goals and what I want off of someone else's Richter scale of what they can do. So I figured out this is something I'm able to do, and I'm able to do it well, and I'm consistent at it. And so yeah, that's how I ended up being the take it out.
Yeah.
800-meter runner.
With the flower in your hair, like out like crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so now you're healthy, you're training.
Yeah.
Take us into 2012.
Yeah.
What was that experience becoming an Olympian and a healthy, fierce, leading, winning races? Talk about that.
It's not that cut and dry. I think part of what we just talked about with how I'd learned to race the way that I wanted to race also had come from conversations with my coach about athletes that were likely doping within my sport, my event in particular. And I also knew, like, okay, part of my practice of what I do at USA Nationals is what I want to be able to do on the world stage. My ultimate goal was to be able to not have somebody else write my story, and that included dopers. That was going to be a part of their story, and I hoped on the other side, I would have the opportunity to prevail. Whether that was at that day, hopefully it was on that day, but likely it wasn't going to be. And so that's also where I feel like that mentality kind of further solidified itself, where I was like, okay, I have to take it out because the only way I'm going to be able to beat the dopers is if they have to come get me. And hopefully they didn't take enough of their juice today to be able to do that. So 2010 was my first bit of awareness of that, of doping actually being a thing, because you're a little bit naive to it before you get into it. And then 2011, I finished fourth to athletes that were suspected dopers. And I was like, okay, I'm so close doing it the way I'm doing it. I can do it. So 2012, I was 100% like, I'm winning gold. Like, I'm going to win gold. I know I'm going to do it. I feel so strong. I feel super powerful. I don't know. There's just all the things you feel, and so when I hadn't made the team in 2008, I made the team in 2012. I won Olympic trials. I mean, I was feeling like all that Sasha Fierce, all that confidence that you want to feel, that just is like you're on top of the world and you deserve to feel it. And I took that momentum with me into the games, and it was an electric feeling. It was amazing, to be honest. My roommate happened to be Emma Coburn's sweet mate. And I remember knowing I wanted to preserve my energy, and my husband and I got a flat outside of the village just because I'd heard all the stories of the energy. I knew again about the time that I had, how much I needed to preserve it, and also who I was racing against. So I had all these factors that I was thinking about that not everybody might be thinking about for their race to get my maybe one moment. And and so I went back to the village the day before my first round, and then, was able to conserve that energy because I think swimming was before us during that time, and they were already partying by that time. So I was like, okay, I need some rest. And it was an amazing experience. The stadium was electric. They were such great hosts. So I had nothing but, to be honest, but positive feelings. That's all you can do when you get there. I knew I'd put in the work. I've recorded everything I needed to record. All I had to do was press play. And so I made it through the first two rounds. The second round, I think, was really close. I did have one of our, now removed athletes in the second round, and I knew that, so I had to run hard. I feel like I've always had to run hard in all of my rounds. Maybe the first one I don't always have to, but I'm fine with doing it. It just feels like I'm recording when I want to. And I ended up finishing fifth at the Olympic Games. I was very disappointed with it, to be completely honest. Coming off, I was did the interviews and yay, the Olympic Games. Oh yeah, you have to remember you finished fifth in the world. That's incredible. But just that blanket of what I think is part of the thing. But I couldn't do anything about it, so I tried to really reset and be like, you don't actually know. You have to be happy about it. The second I saw my coach, I was like, meh.
Yeah.
And I wanted another opportunity.
So how many, and specifically what races have you since had athletes ahead of you be convicted? And give me just those
How
quick
many races
stats.
or years?
No, I mean
years.
World Championships and Olympics.
Yeah.
Results that have been changed.
That have been changed. Four races.
And you
Results
got
been changed.
London.
No, sorry, three. There was a fourth one that they didn't count 2010, so three.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are
World Championships 2011, the London 2012, World Championships 2013.
And you now have 2 bronze medals.
I do have 2 bronze medals, yeah.
So let's...
A Diamond League is missing, by the way.
A Diamond League title.
A Diamond League title is missing. That's what, but you said like...
Yeah. So let's fast forward a couple years, because when I think about you getting these upgraded medals, I think about you being so proud to share those moments with your 2 kids, and how you were robbed of those moments.
Yeah.
But so much of who you are is being a wonderful mother to your kids, and and they got to see you.
Yeah.
And they got to experience that with you when you got the upgrades. So talk a little bit about your decision to start a family and kind of the height of your career, and then what it means to you to be a mother, and what it means to be a female athlete who is a mother.
So I do think all of this was kind of prep for me to be a whole person and to be okay with being a whole person. I do know there's periods of time where this is what my focus is, this is what I'm doing. But part of Alysia also wanted to be a mom, and I grew up with a really big family, and have that big surrounding family with me, for them in the long term. And I know there's a period of time that's a little bit better for me for having kids, and then also wanting to come back to competition, which I really did want to do. And so even with talking with my coach, he's like, this is a really good time period. If you want to come back, you'll be better recovered if this is what you want to do during your career. And so I was like, let's do it. I know I'm going to do 2013, then we'll have an off year. Let's plan it perfectly. Lucky for me, the planning worked. And I ended up having my kids, and I was able to have that recognition with going through 11, 12, and 13 of not having the medals define what happiness in my life looked like. And that's what basically was able to really set off and be like, I'm okay. I know I've done everything I could do to achieve what I've wanted to so far within the sport. And I think, to me, I aced what I was supposed to be doing, even if it didn't show up as what I wanted. And so then to come back around from, the inception 2011 to 19, and finally receiving those medals, that I did feel like I'm so happy I made the decisions that I made, and I didn't make it off of actually having this arbitrary, physical piece of something, that I was able to settle with
the
work and what I did, and how I knew I put myself in the best position to have the best possible result. And that's all that I could control. And so, just to know on the other side, not to downplay, I want those medals.
Yeah, of course.
I want them, and it's a nice reward, and it's...
You weren't going to pause your life and the other things you wanted until you had those trinkets.
I had those things. What if never? Am I only going to make that something that validates me, makes me feel... So anyways, having kids also, to me, has helped me recognize what am I sharing with future generations, be it my kids or, fans or young athletes that are coming up and watching me. What am I sharing with them about my journey and my story? And I just realized there's more depth. I know there's more depth to me, but it was also validating and solidifying there's more depth to me to get it in 2019, have my kids strapped to my back, flying to Doha. And then, they were there in that moment with me, all 3 of my kids. I had this baby in my belly, my 2, Aster and Linnea, in the stands. My mom and my dad came. And it was just so funny to me, to be honest, that moment afterwards where they're like, I got 2 medals, which is so funny. So I got 2 little dolls And so it's like Linnea and Aster's 2 little dolls. And they're like, woo! I'm like, can we see your medals? Gave them both of them. They're like just dropping them. And I'm like, this literally doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
You know, they love their mom regardless. They see what I do. They know track inside and out. Okay, well, not like how to do it.
No,
but
if
like,
you follow Alysia on Instagram, you'll see her and her family at the track. Linnea running laps.
Yep, Aster knows like the long jump approach. He'll stop and like do this whole thing.
But
and
I
love
it in
sharing
perspective.
That. It puts it in perspective. Like I'm like, wow, this is how much like I'm here, like regardless, and I'm important regardless, and I am loved regardless, and I still think there's things that need to be done, and there's justice, and you can fight for all that stuff, but my happiness can't be determined off of, you know, some metallic pieces of specialness. Very special, everyone.
Very special.
Yeah.
But so we can wrap this great conversation with, let's talk about Dream Maternity.
Yes.
In 2019, Alysia, if you were hiding under a rock, you would have missed it. But Alysia was part of a movement with a few other athletes to talk about maternity rights in sports. And Alysia has been a vocal advocate for anti-doping. Obviously, that's affected her. But you became the face of Dream Maternity. And going back to 2014, when you had Linnea and you raced at the U.S. Championships pregnant, I mean, before it was even labeled as Dream Maternity, you were a champion of that. So take us through Dream Maternity movement and maternity rights for women and for women in sport, and how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Dream Maternity movement is something that has been happening in industries across the board before I brought it to sport. The way that we love sport in the world is it allows us to dream. It allows us to see, you know, all of these incredible feats of the human body, you know, brain, psychologically, emotionally, physically. And so I think that's why a lot of people resonated when they saw Dream Maternity in the sport world. People didn't even recognize that this was an issue that we were facing. And I think that's why there was so many eyes that were on it, just because of how sport has so many different translations in life in general. And so now we're making it superhuman by including pregnancy, motherhood, you know, the very beginning of life for everyone that exists on this planet, a part of sport. And, you know, for me, it obviously turned into a movement because it was my life. It was very real. I was an athlete that wasn't deciding to retire to have a family. I felt that I have always been the type of person that's okay with challenging status quo. I've always wanted to push, I don't know if the word push is, but not allow my limits to be defined on somebody else's rubric of what cannot be done. And so that's basically how that started out. And so that's where the story began. And then having my daughter, feeling like I was going to be able to be supported and then to not be was super just like, I can't believe this. Like, I'm super shocked. It's not like I came back after pregnancy, and I mean, still, it doesn't matter. Like, you should be supported regardless. But I mean, I came back after pregnancy. I won 6 and 10 months postpartum, and, you know, felt like I can have such open conversations about, you know, pregnancy and childbirth and competition. And it was just like this dark space of like, let's talk less about the pregnancy and the postpartum period. And also, by the way, we actually don't think you're going to be able to do this. We'd love to reduce your pay until you can prove to us you can do this. And even after that, going into 2016, I knew the pressure because the conversations people didn't know were being had with myself and my sponsors at the time. And even me leaving a previous sponsor and going to another sponsor was because of this conversation nobody knew us having. It was all this in the dark sort of conversation. And I knew there had to be other people that were in the dark having these conversations. And and by the time I rolled through 2016, I was like, I have to make this team because people don't even know I have a target on my head right now. If I don't make this team, this is going to make it even more valid for the reason why I am not valuable. And I ended up falling with 100 meters left to go. 2016 trials, I felt really, really good, but all you can do is say what coulda, shoulda, woulda been, and it wasn't. And the race is 800 meters and you have to finish on your feet regardless of who you get tangled with. And I remember going to Good Day LA and just like was so just down. It's hard it's so hard to just be like, everyone expects for you to be like, I'm an athlete and I can turn around really quick. And sometimes I'm human. And I just remember going Good Day LA and I can't even remember what that interview looked like for them. They were probably like, should we air this? Because I was just so down. Like I was like, I'm going to get dropped from like everything right now. They were like, no, they would never do that. I'm like,
you don't know track
you
and
don't
field.
know track and field at all. Lo and behold, and part of it for me is I always wanted to be with partnerships where I could be honest, and I craved that so much. So it was like kind of a good thing that it happened the way it happened, because it showed like these were not going to be the people that were going to be there for me when it really mattered and when I wanted to make bigger changes and bigger impacts. And I was honest. In 2016, my contract was up and I hadn't made the team, and I was thinking like, what do I say, the perfect thing to say? And they're like, what do your next couple of years look like? And I was like, I want to have another kid. Pin drop.
But that's
but
who
the
you are,
immediate
and
conversation after that was, we're not going to renew your contract.
yeah, that's.
And I was like, talking about it right now makes me feel like stressed out.
But you've partnered with companies that believe in you and love you and support you, and you have now started this conversation where companies in track and field are changing their contracts and how they work with their female athletes. And so even though you had to go through this really traumatic, terrible thing, like the world of track and field is a much better place, and I'm definitely benefiting from it. So
thank you, Emma. I do feel like if it didn't happen, I don't know, it could have happened to somebody else, but if I wasn't so honest in this way, we wouldn't be where we are right now. If I wasn't honest with myself about wanting to have a kid and then having a kid, wasn't honest with my sponsor at the time about wanting to have another one and then being dropped from it, to be like, okay, this is like a real thing where people think you're just like not valuable if this is also a part of what you want in your story. And so just to talk about Dream Maternity, we want to turn our the movement to impact. Hashtag Dream Maternity will still be in existence. However, we're turning into and mother. So it will be I'm Alysia Montaño, three-time medalist, Olympian, and mother, because that's something that belongs to us, but it isn't all of us. And on the other side of the fence, just our industry isn't all that we are. And so we want to be able to bridge that gap of support that isn't currently existing for women athletes right now. We're starting in that space, but we'd love to move it across the board, accruing funds to be able to support moms, whether it be for childcare services, 3 to 4 months before a trials or a games, and finding ways that we can support them in ways that they're not supported right now.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for using your experiences, the highs and the lows of it, to leave track and field a better place than when you had to go through it. And I've personally benefited a lot from your friendship and guidance, and I know everyone else in track has as well. So thank you for joining us on Nuuness TV, and tune in for more episodes. Be sure to follow Alysia. She has great content with her kiddos and her training. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.